everybody. It's Stephanie at MedSpa Distributors. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your day today. We kind of have a little bit of a blended audience today. So before we get started, I just wanted to introduce all the faces that are going to be on the screen for you today. I am Stephanie. I am your brand experience manager at MedSpa Distributors. And what my job is to make sure that you get everything you need out of all the brands that we work with. That involves education, mixing and matching brands, all those things. So I just make sure that you get everything you need out of all the brands that we have. I'm also joined with Pam, who is the president of MedSpa Distributors. This is her company. She hand chose to be a distributor for Viktoria DéAnn many years ago. It's been over a decade at this point. So we've been involved for quite a while with Viktoria DéAnn. Behind the scenes is Andrea, who is her daughter, who makes sure that these webinars happen. Without her, we couldn't do this. She sends out the invitation. She makes these beautiful backgrounds. So we have to thank Andrea and give her the attention she deserves for these webinars. And with that, with it being a family business, Viktoria DéAnn is also a family business. So I'm joined today with Mark Viktora, who is carrying on a 40-year legacy from his father, Dean, who started the company. Mark is now the lead biochemist at Viktoria DéAnn BioCosmeceuticals, and he leads a team of scientists developing bioactive peptides, deals with mushroom extracts, and advanced delivery systems, providing licensed estheticians with tools that truly transform skin and lives. I have been asking for a while to get Mark on here for Peptides 101. My audience has been asking for it. I've been asking for it, and the timing was perfect with West Palm Beach coming up this weekend. So if you're coming to West Palm Beach, we've got a couple little surprises in the webinar that we're going to let you in on of what's going to be going on in West Palm Beach. But we just thought it was a great time to just, whether you're coming to West Palm or not, just refresh that peptide knowledge. So if you're new here, welcome. If not, welcome back. We're starting at the beginning, going over those basics that are always such a good, solid foundation when working with this line. So I know I said a lot, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mark now, and we're going to jump right into the Peptides 101 education.
Stephanie, thank you so much for that introduction. I greatly appreciate it. Let me flip over here to get this.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, I'm
Going.
going to interrupt you for while you're doing that. If there's any questions, we can't see or hear you guys, but we can read you. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in that chat. I'll mesh them into the conversation if we can. If not, we're going to circle back at the end and get all those questions and answers. So be sure to type in the chat. We'll follow along with that as well. Now you can have it, Mark.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Appreciate the introduction. Everybody can see my screen. You guys are good to go over there?
Yes.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. All right. So this is Peptides 101. It's concentrated active for powerful results. It's really going to go over the basics of how peptides work, why they're powerful, why they work on the skin and in the body. As Stephanie mentioned, we've been researching peptides for over 40 years. I have not been researching 40 years myself. I've been doing it for over 2 decades. My father has been doing it for 40 years. So we start in the area of growth hormone, release hormone, mimickers, different cancer-seeking peptides, and some very specific peptides for autism. So pretty broad spectrum of research that we've done. And during that time, we discovered peptides for epithelial cells. And these are the cells that make up your skin. So novel new peptides that target cells and message cells in a specific way. And we'll see exactly what that means during this presentation. So diving right into what is a peptide. A peptide is made of amino acids. So if you see, I'm going to get a little laser pointer up so I can point a little bit. But if you see on this slide, these 3-letter abbreviations, these all represent a different amino acid. None of them are bound together. They're all individual. You might have heard of arginine, for instance, in different supplements and things like that. That's an individual amino acid. When these amino acids bind together, they form peptides. So really simply said, you are what you eat. You become the protein that you eat turns into the peptides and proteins that function in your body. I'm surprised I'm not blue and look like the Cookie Monster because I unfortunately enjoy a lot of cookies. So luckily that's not 100% translated and true. But these peptides bind together to then form proteins. So if you would think of a long chain of amino acids, that's what makes up a protein. Now, we're not focused on proteins necessarily in this presentation. We want to really focus more on peptides. Proteins are pretty large, hard to transmit the skin, hard to drive into the skin. So we focus on these small bioactive peptides is what we're looking at, because these you can actually get into the skin. And I think the key takeaway in this slide is that amino acids are used to make peptides, and a chain of amino acids, these amino acids linked together, make a peptide. So that's the definition, basically. These amino acids, here's all the different amino acids. Now, there's more than this in nature. These are kind of the 20-something amino acids that are used to make the proteins that you'll see naturally within your body and in your skin. I want you to notice that, again, each of these have a 3-letter designation: arginine, histidine, lysine. These are 3 different amino acids, for instance. They all have a 3-letter abbreviation and then a single-letter abbreviation. In the next slide, I'll show you why I'm telling you why those have letter abbreviations to them. And I know this looks complex. It's chemistry. It's, you know, the molecular shape of these, and it's the side chains of each of the amino acids that make them different. Each of these have a standard backbone that they sit on, and then they have these specific side chains that are all different. Now, I mention that because if you think of these linked together with peptide bonds, through peptide bonds, remember these amino acids make peptides. So if you link these together, that's when it becomes a peptide. So if you had arginine, histidine, lysine, arg, his, lys linked together, that would be a small peptide. And a lot of times we kind of refer to these as keys that unlock certain cellular messages. So like if you would think that, hey, this one's a little bit longer, it looks like this tooth on the key, and this one's a little shorter, it represents this tooth on the key. The key is specific to what amino acids are linked together. And that's what unlocks the specific cellular messaging that you're trying to target. Again, I mentioned that these have letter designations. So I think it's another way to kind of describe why and how they work. With these letter designations, a pile of them is just amino acids sitting there. It doesn't mean anything. There's something that the body can use to form into these peptides. When you link them together, they become words. And when those words are arranged in a specific order, they become a sentence or a cellular message to the cells. So this is how the body communicates cell to cell, or what we call intercellularly. What makes this special is that you're working with the natural mechanisms that the cell recognizes. So you're communicating the natural language of the skin and of the body. That allows you to have cumulative results and long-term results, because you're not just trying to damage the skin to get a result. This is how you have lifting of the jawline, difference in the décolleté, which is hard to treat areas, vibrancy of the skin, and then you can also have these short-term results. You can see here instantaneous results as well. And again, that's because you're speaking the message of cells. These peptides are those messages. So where do these messages come from? Why are they so powerful? Because they exist everywhere throughout our skin and our body. They come from DNA. And I haven't been able to make a presentation without DNA, so I'm going to throw it in here again. This DNA, as we know, is located within the nucleus, okay? This is the nucleus of the cell. This is mitochondria, if you recognize those from some of your science classes, powerhouse of the cell. But in this conversation, we're going to focus on this nucleus, and the DNA is housed in there. I kind of think of DNA as like the blueprint of building, say, a skyscraper, a tall building, or some giant project where it's the only blueprint you have to make this building. You wouldn't send that blueprint out to the framers, to the masoners, to the painters, and to everyone else, because you only have one. So what the body does is encapsulates this DNA inside the nucleus. Now remember, this is another picture of what I showed you here in this nucleus, okay? So we're inside that nucleus right here, and you have the DNA that resides in there. Now, it doesn't look like the classic double helix because it's already broken apart and about to be translated or transcribed into RNA. RNA is the copies. So this is you take the blueprint, you turn it into RNA, and then now you can pass it out to everybody that does the work to get the job done. The mitochondria, you can push it out into the cell. It's the copy of the DNA, okay? This DNA is made of nucleic acids, and every 3 of them is called a codon. Now, I'm diving into science here. Stay with me. I'm going to give you where these peptides and amino acids come from, because it'll give you the explanation of why they're so powerful and why they work with the procedures that you perform on your clients and patients. These nucleic acids, every 3 is a codon, and it creates codes for an amino acid. And those amino acids bound together make up your peptides. And as I just mentioned, those peptides are given letter designations. So whatever these code for, whatever amino acid code for, codes for a specific message within the cell or within the body. So that's what makes them so strong, because DNA, as we know, codes for everything: your blue eyes, who you are, color of your hair. Suppose you can take the DNA and clone a whole nother one of you. Um, I will say scientifically it doesn't code for 100%, but that's going to dive too deep. We can get into that discussion and a theoretical discussion about that later. But it codes for 99% of everything. So since this DNA codes for these amino acids, how are they used in the body? Why are they so powerful? And I use this example because this is kind of one of the first known or commercially available peptides was insulin. So insulin was at one point, we couldn't synthesize it. It was actually made from the pancreas of animals, and we discovered it back in the 20s. And it wasn't even synthesized till about the 1980s. So widely used, controls all blood sugar regulation within the body, right? Oxytocin, that is binding hormone, induces labor, as we know. And a peptide made by the hypothalamus, your brain, actually controls all the release of T3 and T4 within your body. So really powerful things that we're working on. Now, in skincare, we're not working with those. I just wanted to show you how powerful they can actually be. But they message everything within your body and from cell to cell communication. Even GLP-1s, for example, that we've heard a lot about, think of Ozempic and those type of things. They are made in gastric juices, basically, but these synthetic ones, even the ones that are made naturally, they message the brain. So you'll feel satiated, you're not hungry anymore, you don't eat as much. So it has those effects. These peptides, these small peptides, have dramatic effects on the body and on the skin. So looking more towards skin, how are these peptides used and how they function? To do that, a lot of the peptides that we research are found during the healing processes. So I have these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It'd be really nice if healing worked in this exact order. It's more like a symphony of cells where one instrument starts playing, and as it's playing, it messages to another instrument or cell to come to the party or come into the symphony. And these are a lot of times done through peptides. So basically, when you have an injury, you have a wound, you have blood platelets seal up the wound, you have mast cells migrate to the area, neutrophils, macrophages then enter the symphony, if you will. And all of these cells are producing these messages to message one another, even to the fibroblasts to come in for proliferation and healing. So this is where they can act as EGF or induce other cells to produce EGF, which is these growth factors. We've heard of that keyword before. They activate stem cells as well, these peptides. In fact, stem cells make peptides, and they're also contained in exosomes. So that's where these stem cells are kind of the common, these peptides are the common denominator between even the newer, what you've heard about technologies. They are the one that is constantly consistent in these active items that we hear about. And then they also activate fibroblasts for proliferation, repair, collagen, elastin. And your skin makes them naturally. They're called defensins to protect itself against enemy intruders, bacteria, things such as that. So you can see they're used throughout to basically all the actives that we've heard about and keywords that marketing have told us. A lot of them are peptides that are causing these things. So this is a medical example. This was done under physician's care. This is Mohs surgery that was performed, and this is a year result. So this is pretty dramatic healing over a year. You can even tell a difference in visibility of fine lines and wrinkles, even though, we focus on the actual injury itself. Now, we're not using peptides on open wounds like this in most of the things and treatments that we offer, but these are good medical examples to show you the power of peptides with the healing of the natural body itself. And this specifically was using repair peptide and then rejuvenator. Now, I want to be cautious. I mentioned that we worked on different cancer-seeking peptides, and Mohs surgery is for basal cell carcinoma. We're not treating cancer in any way, and these peptides aren't treating cancer in any way. I want to make that clear because we do have research in those areas. But this was actually the actual procedure surgery that was done, and this was the after and post care performed. And this is an injury that I actually had a few months ago. 7/28. You can see the dates there on the bottom, 7/28, and then 8/2. So this is only 4 days later. I had a grade 2 tear of my hamstring, of course, a few days before vacation with my daughter, which was amazing. And I had a contusion there, obviously, blood in the area. I use this. I can't recommend that you use this on open wounds or contusions, but if I get a burn, if I have something that happens personally to me, I use peptides on those injury sites. And I just want to show you the healing that takes place, the advanced healing and that takes place with the use of peptides. So this is a great example that I was able to show you that actually occurred to myself. So in skincare, I know these other medical examples I gave you weren't skincare, and I want to move more towards that. You really have four main groupings of peptides that you're going to run into. Whether you're looking at Viktoria DéAnn peptides or any peptides out there on the market, they kind of fall into four different places for cosmeceuticals and skincare. And that ends up being signaling peptides, which honestly, signaling are probably the majority of what you're going to see. We use over 30 different signaling peptides in our products. This is things like collagen synthesis, fibroblast activation, elastin synthesis. You can activate different capillary growth, all sorts of things with signaling peptides that you can do. It's very vast how much research has been done in the signaling peptide area. Enzyme inhibiting peptides, that's targeting more of melanocyte antagonists. And those antagonists are basically mean slowing or modulating the production of melanin. Neurotransmitter inhibiting peptides, you'll hear a lot of people refer to these as Botox-like peptides. We don't use that terminology because it's not Botox. It has nothing really to do with Botox. Maybe visible results kind of correlate, but I want to make sure it's clear that it's not Botox. And then you have carrier peptides. This is one of the first peptides out in skincare, the carrier type peptides. You might recognize copper peptide. I think it's been pretty well marketed and people have heard about the copper peptide itself. So that is a carrier peptide of copper itself. We don't use specifically copper peptide as a carrier peptide, but we do use like melanocyte seeking or homing peptides to carry something like kojic acid, which is a tyrosinase inhibitor. And I'll explain all that when I get to enzyme inhibitor peptides. So I'm jumping ahead of myself right now. So focusing on signaling, as I mentioned, you can target things like mitochondria, collagen synthesis, fibroblasts, elastin, even epigenetic modulation. So this is showing epigenetic modulation. And if you haven't heard about that, that's basically turning on and off different portions of your DNA as like a protection mechanism. One way to relate that is some people will fast for a long period of time to turn on specific genes, and that is epigenetic modulation through fasting. So you can also do that through different peptides, all targeting different things, of course, not the same end result that you're seeking with that. And then, as I mentioned, you have antimicrobial peptides as well. So these peptides basically penetrate in the skin to the target area. Fibroblasts, a lot of times, is going to be your target cell. Either that or epidermal stem cells, for instance. So these signal epidermal stem cells, and your cells make these naturally. Your keratinocytes are sending these messengers out. When there's damage, they send these messengers out to stem cells. Stem cells also message some of these peptides, and they all do specific things. So I'm generalizing a lot of different actions, a lot of different things that would target different skin concerns under signaling peptide. There's not one key signaling peptide that does all of these things. I want to be clear about that. They're all individual to the skin concern you're trying to target and the peptides that you're using to do so. The one that I want to look at is a signaling peptide that we utilize in Lift peptide. And this basically targets the anchoring proteins between cells. So you have this area in the extracellular matrix. That's the area in between the cells. So here's the cell here. And then you have these like little linkages between the cells. And here's another microscopic image of that. These are connections made in between the cells. And we're going to zoom in on that, one of those little areas, and it's going to go to an illustration so it's a little easier to see. Again, you have a cell here and you have a cell here. Okay, these are two different cells. And then in between them, you have these little proteins that link together. These are called cadherins. They kind of look like little green hairs that would stick out from the surface of the cell and connect to the other cadherins on another cell. I'm going to zoom in even closer on that image. So again, this is a cell here. okay? And this is a cell down here, and you have these cadherins that link out from in between the cells. Now, these cadherins come together and bind together, and they're constantly being formed and broken down. So there's like a homeostasis to how fast they're formed and broken down as we age. Obviously, it slows, as does everything else, unfortunately. So peptides can aid in this basically relationship between these two proteins. And when one of these cadherins bind to the other cell, it initiates more forming in the same area. So what that does is you have cadherin clustering, and then that clustering initiates what's called junctional tension. Junctional tension is actually lifting and tightening, which you can see over 1 million cells, because this tension over 1 million cells actually becomes a pretty dramatic difference. So not only do you have the visible lifting effect that we're looking for in skincare, but communication is also done in between these cells and across these proteins, so you also have healthier skin. So that's one way in which these signaling peptides work, and this is just one of those peptides. So this is where you saw, and this specific client used multiple peptides, not just lift. This is where you see that difference in the jawline and lifted skin for loose sagging skin, and tightness of the skin. Now, obviously, the vibrancy in this client's skin has changed dramatically as well. That's due to Rejuvenator and other peptides and the total health and optimization of her skin, along with the treatments of the professional. These go hand in hand with the treatments of the professional. And what I didn't mention earlier is, a lot of times in the treatment room, you're trying to have a focused or precision amount of damage to create a lot of these natural messages that you're trying to produce on the skin. So we are working with peptides in almost any procedure that we offer on the skin. Even minor exfoliation on the surface will induce a peptide response within the skin. What's nice when you add in these other peptides is you have a concentrated response in your treatment room with only a precision amount of damage. So your results outweigh any damage that you're doing to that skin. And that's, I mean, in anything we do, that's what we're trying to do as a skincare professional. Is always your results outweigh the damage that you're causing to that client. This other before and after, I put this up here only because it was recently done on our professional Facebook page on September 12th. And again, this is using the lift kit, and you can see a vast difference in the jawline, décolleté. This is a 9-month difference, and this is Maria Grigg. I contacted her and made sure that was okay. I would never put anything from our professional Facebook page on here without permission from the professional and the client. I just wanted to show this because it's a great place to share your results and also to see other people's experience with the product. So a real good example of lift, though, again, this décolleté area, neck, jawline, really good example of a before and after of the lifting and anti-aging effects of the lift kit in this example. So moving on past signaling peptides, I'm now going to look at neurotransmitter inhibiting peptides. And basically, you have a action potential from the brain go down to through these different nerve cells and to the target or terminal destination in which a contraction occurs. This is basically targeting different muscle groups for a caused by acetylcholine. Now, going back, we're looking again at these little nerve cells, and here's kind of an illustration of this nerve cell, right? So it transfers down there, and then at the end you have this this terminus right here. So this is where the actual chemical impulse, acetylcholine, binds to a receptor and causes contraction of a muscle group for overcontraction within the skin, right? So acetylcholine is contained in these little bubbles, which are called vesicles. Acetylcholine travels down this nerve to this what's called this synaptic cleft, and then the payload, which is acetylcholine, is released and binds to a receptor and causes contraction. Okay, I want to explain all that. I'm not going to give you tons of detail here, only because this is a 101 class. But those vesicles containing acetylcholine have little proteins on them. And that those on the surface of this synaptic cleft, there's proteins that it has to bind to. So let me simplify this for you. You have a cruise ship and your passengers are acetylcholine. And when the passengers are let off the ship, you have muscle contraction, or sometimes in some cases over contraction, right, is what we're worried about. The cruise ship has a ladder to bind to the dock, which are these proteins here. When this latter comes in contact with this dock, it allows this neurotransmitter to be released and cause contraction. And what we're concerned about is this overcontraction, right? How these neurotransmitter inhibiting or modulating peptides work is they will actually bind to these proteins and interact with these proteins. And I guess bind is kind of a strong word. I would rather say interact. And they compete for the latter binding to the dock, which doesn't allow necessarily these passengers to be let off the boat, which can modulate the contraction. I guess the difference would be where Botox totally cuts the ladder up or the dock and destroys it completely, and you have zero contraction. Peptides compete for those positions and doesn't allow them to bind properly necessarily to release their passengers. However, if the message is strong enough, these will overpower the competition of that peptide there and contraction occurs. So that's kind of the difference, if you will. But again, they function in two totally different manners. And this is, again, those neurotransmitter inhibiting peptides that we're looking at. So this is targeting things such as glabellar lines, 11s. We're really targeting those type of different fine lines and wrinkles in that way. And specifically what we're looking at is tone peptide here. A lot of times that peptide is used in combination with lift. So you can have results specifically from tone peptide, but when you use these peptides synergistically together, you get results quicker. That's why this is results immediately after. Now, this was a procedure that was done, I believe, with microcurrents. So it's not just the peptides. They do work at home. But again, you get concentrated results when you use them in the treatment room. So when a client takes this home and uses lift and tone after your treatment, their skin keeps progressing, but not as fast as what you'd offer within your treatment room. So they see a difference in the treatment room. They use the product at home for cumulative benefits, and their skin doesn't revert right back to where it was when they saw you the last time. And that's the beauty about it, is because it keeps progressing, and that's the cumulative benefits that we're looking for. Tone contains hexapeptide 52, octapeptide 3, and palmitoyl heptapeptide 18. Octapeptide, you might have heard of that before. It's like the next gen of Argiline. Argiline, if you remember that, that's acetyl hexapeptide 8. So the octapeptide 3 is just one of those peptides in there. We have a combination of 4 different peptides in there. And then we also use GABA in tone as well. That's aminobutyric acid. So aminobutyric acid, I know a lot of people think of acids as exfoliant type items. Aminobutyric acid has been used as a supplement actually to slow neurotransmission. So we're really targeting in different ways those specific contraction type wrinkles that we're looking at. And the other product I didn't mention for signaling is Rejuvenator. And I wanted to show the lift kit here because it has lift and tone, as I mentioned, and then eye serum, and then Rejuvenator. Now, Rejuvenator, I'm not going to talk about in this presentation. We actually are having a presentation on October 6th, which I believe everyone in this meeting will also receive an email in regards to that. So you can attend that and listen about Rejuvenator. That will be hosted by Viktoria DéAnn, and we'll really kind of go over the peptides and the functionality of that product itself. It targets cellular turnover and really works with different mitochondrial peptides, which is really a key. It's the flagship product we came out with. It started with specifically plastic surgeons working with burn victims. And we basically formulate that into a product for the cosmeceutical market. So really powerful product contained within the lift kit. These results here are after 2 weeks, which is pretty phenomenal. Again, you see the difference in jawline, obviously, vibrancy of the skin. You can see vast differences in fine lines and wrinkles. And really overall health of this client's skin has changed. And this is a 2-week process. Now, there was professional treatments done on this client as well. And she also used another peptide called Procol, which is a signaling peptide I won't go over during this meeting. And that's a picture of the lift kit here. There's your lift tone, Pepti eye serum, and Rejuvenator.
Real lift kit box right here for you, Mark.
Yep, containing a nice kit. It's really your key peptides for anti-aging results. If you're looking for visible results for your client to understand peptides and the power of peptides, that is your go-to kit.
And I don't know if you mentioned, but the Rejuvenator comes in 3 different strengths, so to speak. And we would always start out with the mild first and then work up.
That's correct. Yep. Thank you, Pam. Yeah. So the lift kit, it's the Rejuvenator is the product that changes. That's going to be this product here. And so with the lift kit, you would layer each one. You have these are serum based, and all the peptides I mentioned so far are serum based for lift and tone. You would layer those, wait 2 minutes in between. And you wait 2 minutes in between because you have to have the peptides penetrate in full concentration. You don't want to mix the message up. You want one peptide to go in and start its process of transferring or fluxing through the skin, and then add the next peptide thereafter. So full concentration is received by the cells at one time. Then eye serum under the eyes, and then Rejuvenator is a micelle, which is it kind of mimics the structure of an exosome, if you will. It's got a phospholipid bilayer that aids in penetration of the product. But that being said, it's a cream base, or one that you would call a cream base. So that one isn't necessarily something you'd use directly with your treatment. It would be post-treatment. So looking back at our different groups, we spoke about signaling and then neurotransmitting. The next one we're going to look at is enzyme inhibiting peptides. And again, that's melanocyte antagonists. And that means we're going to look at a cross-section of the skin. Here we have a melanocyte, right? And your melanocyte produces melanin, and that's that pigmentation within your skin. I'm going to zoom in and simplify this melanocyte a lot. It's going to be a square, so bear with me, but it makes it easier to explain what it is. So this is your melanocyte here, and your melanocyte receives messages from keratinocytes. Your brain actually makes this peptide as well, but for local damage, MSH, which is melanocyte stimulating hormone, it is a peptide. So again, a good example of everything is communicated through these peptides. This peptide binds to a protein receptor on the melanocyte, which causes this biological cascade to take place and then activates tyrosinase. Tyrosinase is a protein that basically takes tyrosine and makes melanin, okay? This process needs to take place within your skin, but when you have cells that are damaged, haven't gone through apoptosis, haven't died off, and they keep sending this message, and the response from melanocyte is to keep reproducing pigment, this is where we end up running into troubles. The homeostasis of this whole process is off, is what's happening. So a lot like the neurotransmitter inhibiting peptides, there's a peptide that can sit on this receptor and modulate the binding of this actual peptide that activates the whole system. So this peptide that these melanocyte antagonists or peptides can sit on that protein receptor, and basically when the concentration is high enough, it can still go through the whole process and produce that, but that's how this peptide modulates this whole process. It can also target other areas of this process, and just to show you another example of epigenetic modulation, this MITF is called a transcription factor. It turns on a specific gene that creates this whole process. So it is actually an epigenetic modulator as well. And I just want to keep using that word because you're going to hear about that more and more in health and in beauty. So we utilize Correct HP. Correct HP peptide contains cajoyl carboxy dipeptide. That one is actually dual purpose in that it is a carrier peptide, as I mentioned. It carries kojic acid with dipeptide 23, which is a melanocyte targeter or homing peptide, if you will. Tripeptide 95 and dipeptide 62. That we also utilize azelaic acid in this product as well to destabilize melanin itself. So it's not just a process of an inhibition, but it's also destabilization. So standard metabolism of that melanin can take place within the skin. So you're really trying to rebalance that homeostasis in two different ways with Correct HP. And this specific client, again, she used a synergistic effect of Correct HP, our repair, and then Rejuvenator that you'll see in there as well. You'll see Rejuvenator in a lot of different treatments just because it's targeting that cell turnover. And when you're working with those new healthy cells, you see a more dramatic reaction or response from the cells with the other peptides in combination with them. This is looking through with UV light. You can see the damage below the skin. And this is a 3-month process. Usually these results would take much longer than 3 months. And again, this is using correct HP, repair, peptide in those as well. So I mentioned that each one of these is a different serum that offers a different result on the skin, but being aqueous-based or water-based serums that they are, you can utilize them during your procedure. They're also valuable post-procedure, but what's nice is you can apply them during microcurrent, microchanneling, LED, galvanic, radio frequency, obviously following manufacturer's advice too on how the proper procedure to use with their devices. But they really are just an adjunct to add to the results that you're already getting with those modalities to really optimize both the treatment and for the client as well. What makes us really unique is that we understand the language of each one of these peptides and what we're trying to target. And that's really what makes bioactive peptides bioactive. You have to have the proper message to get the cellular response that you're looking for, to treat the skin condition that you're trying to target. We use USP grade ingredients, which is pretty unusual in the market. We came from pharma basically, and you have to utilize high grade USP amino acids to form the peptides in themselves. So we carried that through what we do and everything that we do. A lot of our raw materials are USP grade. And then finally, the proper peptide concentration. That's most important. You can have peptides in a product, but if you don't have the proper concentration to meet the threshold, and the threshold is what cells use to recognize, hey, do I need to act on this or do I not need to act on this? Is this a false message or is it a proper message? When the concentration, when the threshold is met, that's when you get the results. If that's not there, the cells don't respond. So that's really what makes us unique in the industry, because we synthesize our own peptides and then synergize them with patented peptides from other labs. So we are a lab that synthesizes our own peptides, which makes us unique because we don't just synthesize, we don't just formulate, we synthesize the raw material, incorporate those in a final product, testing all the way from start to finish. And we've won awards year after year for our peptides, and we're proud of that. Many awards for each one of our different peptide serums that we offer. And again, I'm going to put up the Facebook community on there so you can, if you want to join that and share some of your experiences, I greatly appreciate it. I pop in there every now and then when I can, and you might see me in there if you ever put anything in there. So I greatly appreciate it and appreciate your time.
Thanks.
All right, guys. There was a couple Q&As. Go ahead, Pam. Go ahead.
I'm going to say the same thing, so go ahead.
Oh, yeah, there was a couple Q&As that popped up there. Let's start at the top. Will repair help with a scar that's over 5 years old?
So the longer the scar has been there, the harder it is to treat, because the skin goes through during the healing process an inflammation stage, a proliferation phase, and then a remodeling phase. And each of these are coordinated with peptides, of course. As I mentioned, all those different cells migrate to the area. So the longer it's been around, the harder it is to treat and target a scar. So and the short answer is to target those things that have to reinitiate that remodeling phase. You can reinitiate the remodeling phase, but again, you probably won't see results till, I would say, 6 months in, 3 to 6 months in, where you start to see results. So I showed you a lot of before and afters during the presentation that are, single treatment or 1 month. You're looking at a 6-month time frame to start seeing results, and then possibly 2 to 3 year usage to be satisfied where you're finally at the end point of where you want to be with that.
And you may want to do some different things with it too. In cases, I know we do like a little bit of a microdermabrasion to kind of help to almost create a small wound, or microneedling or microchanneling may be done with it too. And then basically start that process, the healing process. And the repair would be really important on that too.
If you're using the proper procedure with that, you will speed up the results. So, I'm targeting more specific product usage. When you combine it with a procedure like that, you are going to increase your results dramatically. And that's what these peptides are made for.
They work so well together.
Let's see. Mark's gonna love this one. Does Viktoria DéAnn have a conductive gel to use with microcurrent? I'm working on it,
We
guys.
all have
Stick
to
with
laugh
me.
about this one.
Stick with me and Pam. We're gonna make this happen and make the answer yes. But go ahead and chime in, Mark.
We have one, yes. Do we have it in final packaging and form for you today? We do not today, but I'm excited to release it for you when that finally happens, because it's going to be a unique one that you haven't seen before.
All
And
right.
I think that's really what we focus on in everything we do, is creating something that's above what you've seen and functions better than what you've seen out there before.
I will tell you though, in a pinch, I used collagen gel one time just to make this short little video to really talk about the Claire Blend Mini and how to just basically you can hold the directions of the probes this way or this way. And I had the collagen gel just clear by. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to use that, right? And I got such a lift. People were writing, that can't be real, and this whole bit. And it was just collagen gel. I didn't even do it to put tone or lift. I was just showing that you need to have a conductive gel down, and I just reached over, used the collagen gel. And I mean, to this day, you can look that up on YouTube, that exists. And it is crazy how much of a lift I got from the home unit just using collagen gel.
Just as a little pro tip, she's right. It is great. It dries out a little faster, so you may want to have like a little bowl of just some water nearby to hydrate a little bit to keep it your slippage there. That's my only complaint, and why we went to Mark and said, "Give me a conductive gel." So stay tuned. Let's see. Next question was, is Correct HP offering exfoliating qualities with the kojic and azelaic acids? Or are the peptides providing that melanin inhibiting property?
So it's a combination of the peptides and destabilization of a molecule. It's called lipofuscin. I didn't want to go into too much detail on the presentation, but the problem that occurs is either you have too much production, or the metabolism of melanin itself isn't taking place at the proper rate. And that's because it is stabilized by a process called lipofuscin, in which fat and actually metals are involved in that. And I know that sounds complex, but we utilize chelative acids. Again, they're not true acids in this exfoliation sense, to try to break up that stabilized molecule so that your skin can break it down at the speed in which it should. Because again, the homeostasis between which it's produced is over, or the homeostasis in which it is broken down is under. And so we're targeting at two different ways.
Okay. She had a little follow-up to that, was also, can it be used with other active ingredients?
Of course, of course. And I mean, I say that you need, like, it depends on what active ingredients you're referring to, obviously, and what treatment you're using them in. But generally speaking, yes, all of these are generally regarded as safe, but you need to make sure that if you're dramatically targeting the skin with something like a harsh chemical peel or something like that, and also your client's sensitivity or allergies, all those go into effect here. And you need to look at that before you treat that client. So I don't want to just say yes off the bat without saying that.
Depends on the rest. Got it.
Yep.
Remind us what you used on your hamstring injury.
That was specifically Rejuvenator. I used Repair in Rejuvenator, but Rejuvenator is really what's targeting that. And again, I can't say that it targets contusions, right? Because that's actually a medical item. When I say that, all I can say is that that's what I use for when I'm injured, right? But Rejuvenator is your culprit for the color change, if you will, in that.
Okay.
Infrared light to it too, but
yeah.
Oh yeah, yes. Well, and I mean, I want to be clear about that. I'm not saying that it healed my hamstring. I actually use different peptides for my hamstring itself, right? I'm only focusing on the skin in that case, the visual look of the skin in that before and after. It's not targeting. It was targeting the visibility of that contusion, not the actual hamstring itself, too. I want to be
Right.
consequences.
The side effects of the
Right.
skin visible problems associated with the injury. Got
Yes.
it.
Bleeding, yes.
Follow up to that was how long was the before and after for this for the back hyperpigmentation? How long apart was the before and after, and which products?
think
Give
it
me
said
one second. It was
2
correct
months.
HP. I'm gonna go back to that slide. It
Didn't
was
say 2
correct
months.
HP
I think it was 2 months.
I think it said 2 months.
and repair. Yep, that's correct. It was 2 months.
Okay,
So
so HP and repair over the course of 2 months with any modalities, any treatments, procedures.
I'm looking at the notes on this. Each one has a note. Correct HP. Um, I do not see a treatment on this one. So this might have been, I know there was, I mean, she was also using different cleanser, obviously, and exfoliator at the same time. I don't have the treatment notes on this specific slide. I'll get that added in here when we check back with our different before and after profiles. This was done, all of these before and afters, except for the one with correct HP. That was a clinical before and after, were all conducted by our estheticians or physicians that turned these before and afters in. And I didn't mention that in the beginning. I wanted to see what you to see what is experienced out there in offices, in other people's offices, not something that we were done through our clinical testing, because you'll see phenomenal results in that as well. But real world application is really nice too.
It's nice to see other estheticians work, because then it's for us as an esthetician, it's like, okay, these are results that I can do too. And not that clinical studies are great, and we all need, our white page studies and our clinical studies, but it's nice, I think, as an esthetician to see results from other estheticians.
That's why I chose these instead of our others. It's more realistic to what you're going to achieve.
Mhm. Our Q&A list is getting a little long. I'm going to get through as many as we can. So if we can go through a little faster, just so we can get as many as we
Okay,
can.
sure.
Do you need to use Rejuvenator with the repair, or will the repair work by itself?
So repair works by itself. It's the synergistic effect of the two. So they're targeting different things. Repair signaling is targeting fibroblasts, whereas Rejuvenator is providing all the proper components for cellular turnover. So I know it looks like they do the same thing, but they do them in completely different ways, which the combination of the two, you get those dramatic results that you're seeing.
You're going to find that to be the case with a lot of peptides. You kind of have to team them up to get the results you want. One's working on the top, one's working on the bottom. So you'll find that all estheticians have their favorite combo of peptides, and that's why we like to chit chat with each other and share these combinations we've come up with. There's not really a wrong way, and you're going to get a result just depending on which peptides you put together at that time.
It's really how fast does your client want to get there, and then it depends on what type of client it is. You'll have a client that comes in and says, "Hey, I want every single one. I'll put 6 different peptides on." And then there's another one that say, "Hey, I can't afford all those peptides. Give me your best one." And that's when you'll have to choose between the cell turnover more important, or is fibroblast more important? Which one can I give them to get the dramatic results? And that's really where your skin assessment comes into play.
Mm-hmm. From Nikki, she says, is it necessary to add a vitamin C serum if using the lift kit? Also, is adding stem cells or growth factors necessary, or are we getting everything we need from peptides?
So you can't, okay, those are 2 different segments of that question, right? So vitamin C we're referring to first. You can add vitamin C to your regimen. That's not a problem. It's a great antioxidant, works well with the antioxidant system, glutathione, all those other things. I could give a whole presentation on this portion unto itself. In regards to stem cells, I'm very cautious in that question because I talk about this in other classes. None of your products have stem cells in them. Like, there are no live stem cells in your products. I'd like to be clear about that. There's stem cell conditioned medium. So you'll see that on the back of your packaging. Probably most of the products that claim that there are stem cells, quote unquote, or marketing has led you to believe they're stem cells. Not that they're lying to you, or not that they meant to lie to you, but it's stem cell conditioned medium that's in your product. So that conditioned medium is the peptides that the stem cells released as they were growing and proliferating. And then they took the stem cells out, and then you're left with these peptides and growth factors within this conditioned medium. And then that's what they put in your product. So when I mentioned the common denominator, that common denominator is that peptides are what you're using, and you just don't necessarily, it's not laid out for you in that manner.
All right. Let's see. The next question was, I've learned that peptides are fragile, not to be used with steam, etc. How come the other modalities like microneedling, microcurrent don't impair the peptides?
That's a really good question. Okay, pretty broad. I mean, so microcurrent, what's interesting in microcurrent is that these peptides have a current unto themselves. And that current that you're using also induces specific peptide release within the skin without the damage, which is kind of nice. So you don't have any of that damage that you might have with not microneedling. Not that I think microneedling is bad, but they're two different things. So, and then the damage that you're causing with microneedling doesn't affect the peptides because the peptides are infinitely smaller than the microneedles themselves. So you're not going to damage them in that way. The heat, on the other hand, can have an effect on the peptides because it is actually physically breaking them down. So that's really the difference.
Let's see. I'm having to pick and choose a little bit here, guys. Which peptide is recommended to infuse during microchanneling? We just basically just kind of piggyback on what you just said. Any of them, that's a perfect time. Nano channeling kind of creates that pathway for the peptides to kind of settle into. So those you can pick to be client specific to what you want to nano channel in. You guys are asking great questions, and you're right in the wheelhouse of what Pam and I do as far as mixing modalities in with what the peptide, how to use the peptides. So while I'm gonna cut off the questions there because we're getting into a peptide 102, 201 type of thing. So I love where you guys are going, and this is what we do, is how to combine that in with equipment. So I'm going to stop the questions there because we've got a whole nother class on that, and it sounds like you guys would be into that. So the last question for this session is, can you touch on the nano masks and what makes those so special in the product line?
Certainly. So nanomasks are kind of a hybrid modality, if you will, and you can actually perform modalities over the nanomask, such as microcurrent, if you will. But the nanomask is a biocellulose mask, meaning it's growing from a commensal bacteria, like a bacteria that's good for you. And it contains microfibrils or nanofibrils that actually push product into the skin. And it also, because they're individually grown and not, a lot of the biocellulose masks out there will be grown and then pulverized down to a powder and reformed in a mask because you can get optimum use and have a cheaper type of mask and more cost-effective mask, but it destroys the nanofibril network that pushes the product in. And then it also destroys the natural gradient that is built from the growth of it as they're growing individually. So when you layer your peptides, you can put the nano mask over your peptide serums, and it helps push the product in through the natural gradient and delivers them on a nano level through these nanofibrils that are offered in the mask. And that's what's really unique about that mask.
Awesome.
So very happy about that. One last little thing, though, just for this poor person that asked, what rejuvenator did you use on your injury? Was it Ultra?
Okay, so you always start with mild. I'm going to go ahead and say that. Whenever I have anything like that, I always use Ultra. Some people are susceptible to niacin, which they would need to be careful using Ultra and would need to test anything like that before they use it. But for the fastest results for something like that, I use it immediately.
So yes, I assume that's what it was, but yes, Mark is, someone wrote, thank you, Mark. You're very knowledgeable for all your knowledge. And
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I knew this was something that everybody's wanted. Stephanie is right. We will be doing an education for talking about devices along with it, because that obviously is something that we do too. But that doesn't mean this will not be effective without devices or vice versa, but together, certain devices, as you all know, I'm really into microcurrent, been for multiple years, can use his mask too with the microcurrent, works great with that. So LED clear products, we always want clear. And so, like I said, we can really take and help you with a lot of that information. Between Stephanie and I don't know, she tells me how many years we have together, and obviously Mark too. So between us, we can get you onto a good path and great results for your clients and for their home care.
Doing a quick, I think between the three of us, it'd be about 60 years. About 60 years of education on the screen right now. So, so feel free to give us a call. If you need us, let me know. If not, I hope to see you at West Palm Beach. If not, see you soon. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate
Thank
all your
you.
time. Thank
Bye.
you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.